Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Callum McGregor signs a new 4-year deal at Celtic. Lee Wallace says the Rangers team is heading in the right direction. Alan Archibald is confident they can cause an upset at Firhill tomorrow night. Just a few of the talking points on the programme. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin. I'm delighted that our new regular boot-room guest, Barry Ferguson, is here with us. And the reason I mentioned that, Ruffy, is because first couple of weeks, you know, we get really excited about it. Then week 3 and 4, we start giving him a real battering.
Probably begin as a battle.
Delighted to have you with us, Barry. There's lots to talk about. Let's have a look at some of the back pages of the newspapers from this morning's headlines in the Daily Record. You'll never be loved like Leo. This is Mikael Lustig talking about Neymar and his fallout with Anthony Ralston and his diving antics. Top spot means nothing to Pedro Caixinha, of course, because the best time to be at the top of the Premiership is in May. As far as the Sun is concerned, you'll never be like Messi again. And there's a story at the top there, Everton looking at Anthony Ralston. And in the Daily Mail, it's a great photograph there of the Tottenham Hotspur striker Harry Kane, 2 goals in their 3-1 win over Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League in match day 1 for the London side. So we'll talk Champions League later on in the programme. We'll also hear from journalist Patrick Barclay, who's been talking about a book on Sir Matt Busby. So don't miss that. Great insight into one of the greatest managers in the British game. So with that in mind, what about the 4-year deal, Ruffy, for Callum McGregor? Well worthy of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the young lad, when given a chance, has been impressive. I think year on year he's got better and better, and I think in a lot of big games he's come on and changed the whole game just with his speed, you know, his athleticism. He's just a young lad that adds something to the game. Yeah. Particularly from the bench, but I'm sure he would like to obviously start the games. Yeah,
and Barry, in the summer I was the first, along with Ruffy and many others, to admit that, well, I had written him off. I thought he was one of those players that would be going, but under Brendan Rodgers, galvanised and re-energised.
Yeah, he's a player, as Ruffy said, over the last couple of years he's improved. For me, I think he's got everything a modern day midfielder needs. He's good on the ball, he can get about the pitch, but most importantly, he scores goals. I'm just surprised that he's not played in some of the big games for Celtic. Certainly on Tuesday night I was expecting him to start, but for me he totally deserves it. And for me again, he's one of Celtic's most important players. On his game, he's one of the best midfielders in Scotland for me.
Yep, he's got a new 4-year deal. This is what he makes of it all.
Delighted. Obviously been a great start to the season as well, and to get it signed and continue to play football here is it's a great thing for me, you know, to keep going. I signed obviously a contract before, and to get this one as well to take me into the latter stage of my career, then I'm delighted at that. It's a great place to play, you know. Came to the club when I was 8 years old, and it's pretty much all I've known since then, apart from that wee spell at Notts County. But yeah, for me, it's been a great place to play. Obviously, coming off the back of last season as well, big Champions League games as well, and everything seems to be going in the right direction for the club, and that's fine for me to stay here and play.
Yep, so he gets a new deal. There's a number of players that suddenly have been given these new long-term deals, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think that's the idea of where Celtic are going. You know, it's young players coming in, you know, just bedding them in. You know, you don't have to throw them in right away. You can just, you know, drip feed them into the games, the big games, and he in particular, you know, even when the bigger names have been getting signed, you know, it hasn't phased him at all. Any games he's come in, he's just done his own thing. But that looks as if it's if you're a supporter, you know, and you see your club bringing in all these young players, and you're looking 5 years down the road, it looks pretty healthy.
Yep, and of course Brendan Rodgers trying to make sure he's got the nucleus of the side for the long term, despite that blow against Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, Brendan Rodgers has mentioned today that Celtic need to try and adapt to the rigours of domestic football and that higher quality in European football.
I think what's important is that it's a mentality for me. You know, we want to. I think for Celtic to qualify for the Champions League is huge, in many ways. But that can't be seen just to be the success. You know, I want us to go into the Champions League and then impose our way of playing and way of working. And I know it's a million miles away from financially where other teams are at, but it still should allow us to compete. And of course that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, I knew he was never going to be satisfied, Barry, with just being at the Champions League table. He'll want to do more. And I think the measure of the gap was there for all to see. Paris Saint-Germain were a delight to watch.
Yeah, I watched the game. I thought they were unbelievable. That's the first time I've seen them this season. A lot of people going about the front three, how much they've cost. They are exceptional players, but me as being a former midfielder, I thought the midfield were different class. But you can see there in the interview, he wasn't happy. Certainly for me, the first half, they didn't get anywhere near them, didn't get close enough to them. And then come the second half, after the third goal went in the first half, the second half was basically finished for me. So you can tell in his interview he's disappointed, and I'm sure the players will be disappointed and they'll want to get back to winning ways at the weekend.
Yeah. Let's switch our attention to the football that's coming up. The first game is Friday night, Firhill, Partick Thistle against Rangers. Alan Archibald still looking for that first 3 points, and it doesn't get any tougher than a Rangers side that look as if they're just starting to get it together. Lee Wallace, the Rangers captain, says it was a shaky start, but he can see it clicking.
Always going to be the case. We're getting new players in, guys that were used to different cultures, and of course we absolutely didn't want the European result to happen, but obviously the fact that you're asking the question about the early season sort of criticisms and that, getting out of the way, fine if you want to look at it like that, but I think we're happy to put that at the back of us, and we've moved forward well. We've responded well to the criticism and the embarrassment and the humiliation that we deserved at the time, but I think as a group, with the gelling, with the new guys learning the language, learning the culture, bringing their families across, getting used to how we train, getting used to the city, I think that's all moving forward positively. And as I said, we've got a long way to go, but we're happy with how it's going.
Yeah, winning games always buys you that extra bit of time. What do you make of them now from the early season where people were rightly critical of Pedro Caixinha's side? What do you make of them right now?
Well, certainly there has been an improvement from the Hibs and the Hearts games. I've obviously looked up to Ross County, which is a difficult place to go. I watched that game. First half they were good, second half weren't so good, but at the end of the day they came away with the 3 points. They had a convincing victory against Dundee on Saturday. But there's no excuses now. I've seen, or I've read, Caixinha say that everybody's bedded in now, and now the captain's just said that as well, so there's no more excuses. They're used to Scottish football. And they need to go to Firhill, which is a difficult place to go. For me, Partick Thistle are in the wrong position for me. They're certainly, the start they've had Celtic, Aberdeen, Hibs, difficult games, and they'll be wanting to get their first one under their belt against Rangers. It's going to be a difficult game, as I say, but Rangers have got to go there and keep the momentum, because certainly the last couple of games have been a lot better.
Yeah, give us an insight, Barry, into it. Pedro Caixinha is talking about players, and rightly so, take time if they're coming from a foreign country and they've got to bed into it all. But do they have to get used to the psychology as well, because you know exactly what that's all about?
Yeah, listen, they do need time, but it's important that the guys who have been at the club, like Kenny Miller and Lee Wallace, and even the staff who have been at the club for a number of years. But I'm afraid that at clubs like Rangers and Celtic, you don't get a lot of time. There will be excuses at the start because they're new, as I said, their families are not here, they're getting used to the culture, the pace of the game. But now all the excuses are away now. They need to start winning every single Saturday, because at a club like Rangers it's pressure every single day. And every single game you play you're expected to win. Because a draw, they're not happy, a defeat, they're going through you, the fans. So they need to get used to it. These new players need to realise the expectations on their shoulders, because it's a massive club and there's expectations when you play at a massive club.
Yeah, and with that in mind, Ruffy, we've always mentioned Dundee, 2 games against Partick Thistle before Celtic on the horizon. It's just win these games and get that momentum building.
Yeah, you're right. If Rangers were to go and win these games, all of a sudden they're in the semi-final of a cup, which I'm sure the supporters and the players themselves will give them more confidence getting into the game, and that seems to be what it is. It's this big game that's coming up that everybody's going to start judging, everybody concerned, the manager and the players. So you want to go into that game, you know, with a bit of confidence. You don't want to go into the Celtic game on the back of maybe a draw and a loss or whatever. You want to go into the game absolutely bubbling and looking forward to it rather than being the negative side of it. But I think this is the big one. I think obviously most of these new Rangers players haven't played in front of a crowd like that or a game like that. So as Barry said, that's when the pressure kicks in. That's when you know that the players that you've signed are up for it, because if it goes the opposite way, then you see the heads going down. But Rangers will be hoping that doesn't happen.
Okay, from Partick Thistle against Rangers after the break, we'll get these guys to look ahead to some of the other matches over the course of the weekend, and we'll also cast our eye backwards to the Champions League matches from last night, which involved British clubs as well. As ever, we like to test you with a little bit of football and musical knowledge. Not a bad return from both men. No foxing Ruffy or Barry Ferguson, our boot-room guest, on that particular question. Well, from the pressures of Pedro Caixinha trying to get a result for Rangers at Firhill, one man who Barry Ferguson knows very well, his former teammate and good friend Lee McCulloch, takes his Kilmarnock side up to Pittodrie. I suppose they need Aberdeen like a hole in the head right now, Barry. They need to try and get a result first of all.
Yeah, it's a difficult game. Yeah, I mean, I've said plenty of times how well Derek McInnes has done with Aberdeen. I feel for Lee. Obviously he's a good friend, but it's been a hard, difficult start for his managerial career, well, certainly this season. But it worries me. You look at what's happened down south. Boards sometimes take the decision too early. I think you've got to give Lee a right few more games. I'm sure, I'm positive, speaking to him in the summer when he was making signings, I think he has made some good signings. It does take a bit of time, but you don't get a lot of time in football. That's the problem. But I'm sure, I read that he's been in really early this week, preparing. He spoke to each player individually. So he'll be going up with a game plan, and hopefully they can come away with something up there.
Yeah, strangely enough, Ruffy, I think the lunacy of what's happening down south may well, be looked upon up here as they'll follow suit. Chairman, boards look at it, start to get a bit panicky. Scott Bain, I think, is calling for patience up at Dundee for Neil McCann. I mean, these are early days. If Pedro Caixinha's got his players' time to bed in, then these young managers need that time as well, albeit, Aberdeen is a team that you don't want to face when you're trying to scratch out a result somewhere.
No, but you wonder why these owners panic so early. If you look at the league, there's 4 or 5 teams only and about a 1 point, 2 point away from each other. You know you're not going to be challenging, well, most of them will know they're not going to be challenging the top 4. So you should be focused on where you want to be, and there will be certain fixtures, I keep saying this, there'll be 3 or 4 fixtures coming up where you'll be playing the teams that you're expected to beat, and that's the ones that you should be judged on. And then if there becomes a gap of maybe 12 points, then that's the time to panic. I don't think this is the time to panic now when they're all so close together.
Yeah, here's a look at the Premiership table just to see how tight it is at the bottom end as well, because we talked there about Dundee also in the same predicament, and Partick Thistle, as you can see, and then one win can suddenly get you back in touch with that middle section, Barry.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it there. As Ruffy said, there's only 4 points, difference. going up to Hearts in 8th place. So it's got for Lee, certainly it's a difficult. I mean, I take my hat off to him taking the job, because I would imagine the budget down there will be pretty low. They'll be scraping about trying to get players, but I'm sure if he's given time, he will be a success. I always seen when I played with him that he had the credentials to be a manager, and I think it's far too early to judge him just now. Maybe come Christmas, if they're still a certain amount of points behind certain teams, but it's too early to judge just now, and I'm sure in the next couple of months he'll pick up points and start climbing that league.
Yeah, I mean, he's got experienced players that can that should be able to take the pressures, Ruffy Burke, and he's got a goal scorer. Lee Erwin will score goals.
Yeah, I agree with Barry. I think some of his signings, when I saw them, I went, oh, how did he get a hold of him, or how did he coax him to come? You know, and certainly he's identified at the back, you know, you have to be pretty strong and all those easy goals the way Kilmarnock used to do. So he strengthened that with the boy Greer. And you're right, we saw Lee, we saw him, we saw the goals he scores. And again, maybe they need to settle. I mean, they've probably not played in that kind of surface before, so maybe they need to take time to adapt to what they're playing in every second week.
Yeah, well, and they're up against an Aberdeen side that will be looking to get back to winning ways as well. It was 0-0 against Hearts last weekend. Of course, fresh from putting his plea to an Aberdeen hearing on the move to the new stadium, Derek McInnes today was talking about how the team on the park actually get competition for places.
Probably in most areas the team have got competition. I think a club like Aberdeen should have competition and not be too over reliant on the same people. But you know, it's you know, the players are aware of that. They're well aware that we can't do what we want to do this season with just 11 players. But I can only pick 11 at any time, so it's up for everybody to play their part when they get opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, guys like Gary Mackay-Steven and Greg Stewart still trying to get a regular place in the team as well, Ruffy.
Yeah, that's a good sign. That I mean, I looked at the bench last Saturday, and it was pretty impressive. You know, when you see the guys that are on it, and it's up to the guys to force themselves into the team. But it just means that I'm sure they're going to be as ambitious as everybody that's playing. So that's when you get a return, when they actually get a chance to get on the park and they prove that they should be in the starting 11, and that's when you get the benefit of it.
Yeah, I mean, they've even got the likes of Greg Tansey, Nicky Maynard as well. He's got that strength and depth. I mean, I think that's where Rangers should be looking. That battle with Aberdeen, I think, is going to be key. I
actually think he's got a stronger squad than last year. I know he's lost Johnny Hayes, who was a massive player, Niall McGinn and Jack away to Rangers, but some of his recruitment, Derek McInnes' recruitment for me has been excellent. Again, they're obviously behind, I would probably say, Hearts, Rangers and Celtic budget-wise, and to attract players to go up to Aberdeen, he's done a great job.
If you're talking about your admiration for Lee McCulloch taking the job at Kilmarnock, what's your thoughts then on Neil McCann? I mean, many people looked and thought, well, he's got a cushy number at Sky. There's a big leap of faith, and again, he's just trying to get those players at Dundee round to his way of thinking.
Well, I know Neil really well. Obviously, I played him at Rangers, and one thing about him, he's a winner. He's got a nasty side that I loved about him when I played. A lot of people think we've got a wee winger, but listen, he doesn't get messed about, and I'm sure again he needs a bit of time to instill that into his squad. I do think they've got some. I've watched the Dundee derby, and I thought they were really good. I know they've struggled to pick up points in the league, but again, he'll be working hard up there. And again, given time, I think Neil will be a success.
It's strange, actually, how so many of your teammates, you know, were they two of the prime candidates that you always thought were going to go on to become managers, or were there others there that you thought were stonewall certainties and they just decided not to?
Yeah, well, there was one that was there was a few that were stonewallers that I thought would get into management and are not interested, and the ones that I didn't think of went into management. So it's crazy, but it's great. I love to see that. I obviously hope that they do well, and I'm sure they will do well. Lee and Neil, for me, were really good players, real good characters, strong characters and winners, and it takes time to instill that into a squad.
Who was the prime candidate that you thought, oh, he's going to be a manager, and and they just stepped away?
I've got to be honest, I thought Craig Moore would have went into management. I thought, I'm surprised, I know he's over in Brisbane, he's went into the other side, he's a director of football type guy, so I mean, I asked the question, I still keep in contact with him, I asked the question, he's like, I'm not interested in the nonsense that comes with management, I'm happy to stay behind the scenes. He was probably the one guy that I thought would get into management. There was another few. Van Bronckhorst, I would never thought Gio would have went into management, and look at the job he's done at Feyenoord. He's apart from the result last night,
yeah,
they won their first cup a couple of years ago and they won the league last season, and he has another good season over in Holland. I can see him moving to a top European club.
Yeah, are you still buzzing to get back involved? I mean, listen, we might only have you for about 5 or 6 weeks, and then getting back into it would be great. I still think there's a job to do that you could do in management.
Yeah, I'm still interested. I had a few offers that have not been right for me. It needs to be right this time. But listen, a lot of people keep asking me, do you think you've done the right thing going to the lower leagues? I wouldn't change it. I learned a lot, and I'm a better person for it. I'm glad I went down to League 2. It was the first couple of years were good. The third year wasn't so good, so I decided to step away. But I love coaching. I love getting out in the football field and getting in amongst the guys and putting on sessions. It's the only thing I've ever known is football. So hopefully something will come. The right job will come at some stage. But if not, I'm afraid you two are stuck with me for, for a while.
Yeah, phone now. I was actually going to say to you, if an experienced guy that you knew from your past came along and said, look, come along as my number 2, would you do that?
Yep, that's another thing. I've sat down with people who are trusting the game, and that's something that I'd certainly do now. I did have an opportunity, but again, it was meant I'd have to have moved away. My youngest is still at school. I'm not keen on that, moving away. But if an experienced manager or experienced coach to get in the background, that's something that I'd certainly do. And again, getting into the youth side, I would love to go and pass on the things that I've done in the game, the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah.
Hopefully kids would listen. But no, I do miss it. I'm getting out of games now. I took a wee bit of time out, but now I'm getting out and watching football. It gives you that wee bit to get back into it.
Yep. Well, I don't think it'll be too long before you are back involved in football. If it is, then obviously we're going to have one heck of a Christmas party, to be perfectly honest with you. Looking forward to that one, Ruffy. But after the break, we are going to get Barry's thoughts on Champions League football as well. Some of the other games across the other 4 divisions in Scotland as well. Don't forget, we've got that special part of the programme coming up also with Patrick Barclay talking about Sir Matt Busby. We've got another question for you now. Join us after the break. 13 trophies and the ultimate one in 1968. We'll hear from Patrick Barclay in the next part of the programme on the career of Sir Matt Busby. He's got a book out, the definitive biography. Alan Ruff and Barry Ferguson are with me here in the studio on this Thursday night. It's Partick Thistle against Rangers on the Friday, and then at the weekend we've got some really interesting games ahead. Of course, Motherwell travel to Hibernian, and Stephen Robinson's been talking about his association with the Hibs boss, Neil Lennon.
Obviously, studious of the game, and it's, a lot of his big opinions on the game and how he wanted to play in that, and he's obviously gone and been proved that he's able to do that there, with Celtic and now with Hibs as well. So, I don't think he ever look at anybody and go, yeah, he's definitely going to be a manager or not, but he's obviously done extremely well.
You see, that's a former teammate. The two of them played at Northern Ireland, and even he get gobsmacked when Neil went into to management. But again, both of them seem to have had a sound start this season.
Yeah, listen, for me, I think Hibernian will finish in the top 4. I think some of Lenny's signings have been excellent. You just need to look at the support that they get. I think last year in the Championship they were getting 16,000, 17,000 each week, or every second week. I've got a lot of time for Neil Lennon. He had a difficult time down at Bolton, but he's come back up here, and at the first time he asked him, he got Hibs out of the Championship. And this year they've had a decent start, and I think they'll be in the top 4 for me.
Yeah, you see, Ruffy, as I said, yeah, I think they'll be up there as well. I think they've had a couple of blips, but
yeah, I just think it's a consistency level. You know, the games will go to when you think, oh, that's a 3 points, and then it's a draw. You know, but certainly the games at the weekend, they're the games. If they've got to start winning them comfortably, then you've got to start saying, well, yeah, they will be up there. And he has made some good signings. Again, I think when the window comes, if he needs it, I think he'll do it again. As Barry said, when you get that kind of crowd going in, you know, it gives you finance, you know, to get out and maybe splash a couple of players, and that's what he'll look to do. But no, I think everything's going well just now.
Yeah, well, on that basis, as soon as you give me that line, I've got to get back at you and say, if Hibs are top 4, who is the top 4 for you then? I would presume Celtic's a given because of their financial clout.
Rangers, Aberdeen.
Yeah, and no Hearts in there.
No, I think Hearts will just finish outside it.
Yeah.
I think they made the right appointment in Craig Levein, to be honest with you. I think he'll bring a bit of stability back and a bit of know-how and a bit of experience. But no, I fancy Hibs finishing above Hearts.
Yeah, of course, I'll tell you one thing that I'm looking at with great interest, Ruffy, is the stadium and how that final section, the old main stand, is now looking absolutely fabulous. I mean, the glass interior, it's going to be really impressive when it eventually opens as a 20,000-seater stadium. I mean, I just think it's really looking great. All it needs is, you know, Levein, if he can kickstart that team onto some form as well.
Yeah, I think we all know the atmosphere in the stadium before that was getting built was tremendous, and I'm sure a brand new stadium side will add to that. No, it'll be it's a great atmosphere to go and play in, you know. And I'm sure once the stadium's up, and I know it sounds a bit silly, but even a stadium like that can attract players. You know, if you want to sign somebody and you bring them up and you walk them onto the park, and all of a sudden you've got a great stadium, you've got a great training facility. All these wee things help to sort of attract a better player.
My favourite away ground. I love playing there. The atmosphere was electric. Fans are right on top of you. And I'd imagine they'll try and get that main stand similar to the other 3 stands. I love playing there.
Yeah, I must admit, and it's not because my memory's gone on it, how were you when you were getting pelters? Were you the type of person that could just, you continue your game? Were you so focused on it? Did you hear any of the... I mean, Tynecastle's the perfect place because they're on your case even if they get a throw in.
They can touch it, Tynecastle. No, I've had a few. Listen, I don't mind. I never mind fans giving you a bit of stick.
Yeah.
You gave a wee bit back. That's part and parcel of football, and that's what, as a footballer, that's why I love going to Tynecastle. Like, I take it like Hampden. Like playing at Hampden, there's no atmosphere. You're too far away for the fans. I just love being in amongst them, and I try to stay centrally all the time. When I moved out, you tend to hear getting a wee bit of dogs abuse, but listen, I loved that.
Yeah.
A great stadium, loved it.
What did you make of just on that point? What did you make of the exchange between Anthony Ralston and Neymar? Neymar at the end, obviously, I always think the PR machine kicks in at the end when he's getting pelters. Suddenly, his shirt has been given to, Kenny Dalglish and Marina Dalglish's charity, which is a brilliant charity and a worthwhile cause. But on the part, there was no exchanging of shirt with Ralston, a young boy. Clearly, they had that wee... Yeah,
I seen Ralston's interview after it, and to be fair, it was a mature interview. He just says it was part and parcel of football, but listen, I think Neymar will know that it was a young boy he was playing against, and listen, whatever happens during the 90 minutes or 92 minutes, whatever, it's forgot about as soon as that whistle goes.
Was there anybody that you admired when you were a young boy and you were playing and you knew you had to be up and you wanted to try and derail? I mean, I love players who like a good noise up,
Yeah, most players I played against, certainly when you played against Celtic, Neil Lennon, that was obviously the obvious one, that during the game hated each other. Before the game or after the game, total respect to each other. And that's the way I liked it. What I didn't like when I played was guys trying to talk to me. Like, have a conversation if the ball was out or somebody was down injured. I just couldn't, I just don't get that. And if I seen a teammate talking to another guy for the opposition, I just didn't like that. Talk to him after the game. There's plenty of time after the game, not during the game.
It's funny.
I don't like
You're the opposite of your brother, because apparently Derek mentions the fact that when he made his debut and he was playing, he was playing in a Rangers Celtic match, Tommy Burns said to him, that was a good pass. Keep doing what you're doing, son.
See, it's great, Tommy Burns. I mean, I worked with Tommy Burns at Scotland, and he was a great coach and a great man. But even if I was in Derek's position, I would have just blanked him. Yeah. Then after the game, I'd be like, thanks, how did I do that? But I wasn't one for talking during the game. I don't like to see that. I like people who are fully focused on winning for your team.
It's funny you saying that, because Ruffy, you were able to talk to Dixie Deans after he'd scored 5 passes just to find out what was happening at the corner.
It was just a casual, how many of you scored, Dixie? And he went, oh, that's 6.
In the one game, by the way. Okay, I'm going to switch from the domestic situation to the Champions League, because I mean, I always think it gets really, really interesting when you get to the knockout stages. But at this point, you know, here's the results from last night. I wonder what your thoughts on whether any English team is going to be there or thereabouts, or even indeed Paris Saint-Germain. Liverpool's old failings came back to haunt them once more with their defending. 2-2 against Seville. Maribor and Spartak Moscow couldn't be separated. You know, your old mate Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, his team get a pasting against Manchester City. Shakhtar Donetsk, never easy in Ukraine, defeated Napoli. And Besiktas, what a result that was against Porto. Leipzig and Monaco shared a 1-1 draw. Real Madrid continue on their European run. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. But what about Tottenham? 3-1 against Borussia Dortmund. There were so many choices last night for a game to watch, but I automatically thought, I'm going to watch Tottenham, and it didn't disappoint.
I'm a big fan of Tottenham. I think he's starting 11 down there. I think that's why he doesn't sign a lot of players, because he's got that good a starting 11. Players will know they'll come and maybe no get a game. Yeah. But I started off watching the Tottenham game. Then I went to see I was flicking between Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham. I started, but eventually I finished off with Tottenham, because Tottenham are one of my favourite English teams. I like watching Tottenham. I like the way they play. Yeah. But out of them, I think Man City. I watched Pep Guardiola's interview. Just something tells me about him that he's got them right this year. Yeah. I think they can go far.
Right. Far? What? Semi-finals or final?
You're putting me under pressure. I think they can go far.
I'll put you under pressure because he's picked Paris Saint-Germain.
No, I think I've Real Madrid for me this year.
Yeah, same here.
Real Madrid. I think Paris can go far again, semi-finals, maybe. But for me, I can't see past Real Madrid. Yeah.
Just on that point, when you're talking about Tottenham there, I sometimes think, you know, down south they elevate players to positions that they're not quite at. You know, nothing like you know, boosting someone's confidence. Is Harry Kane world class yet?
Yeah, I've watched him. I actually played against him when Tottenham were sending him out on loan. He went to a number of clubs. I think it was at Leicester when I played against him, and he was raw, really raw. He never stuck out. Yeah. Just off of a sudden, he's burst onto the scene. What I like about him is he's a natural finisher. His work rate's phenomenal. I think he's not world class yet, but I think he's got the potential to be world class. There's no doubt. He's a born goal scorer. Yeah,
Ruffy. I mean, one of his goals last night was just an absolute peach.
Yeah, he took it well. But for me, the person I like watching the team is Eriksen. I think Eriksen, that pass he made, you know, for the first goal was just sublime. You know, he just took it in his stride. And that kind of player excites me. Obviously free kicks as well, but world class with me is always, you've got to do it at world class level. You know, he's got to, England have got to go to a World Cup, and he's got to be there or thereabouts, the main man. You know, I think he could get there, but not the now for me. I think he's a wonderful player.
And do you agree with Barry? Man City last 4 possibly this year?
No, I think they're failing. It'll be 8 again. I think I'm still not too sure about the defence.
Okay, then I just thought I'd throw that in there just to see when we were going to give him a right good battering on the show, but obviously not tonight. We'll wait till next week.
Who have you picked?
I've picked Paris Saint-Germain for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
so
he's
a bit more hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. If they could get another £166 million player in loan, maybe they could win it. Anyway, thanks to Barry for joining us on the programme. This next part, a little bit of a special for us. We had a great chance to speak to Patrick Barclay earlier today. I caught up with him to get his thoughts on a great book out on Sir Matt Busby, and there were some great emotional parts in the book that Patrick was telling us about. You can find out after the break on Sir Matt Busby. Sir Matt Busby is one of the most respected and revered managers in the history of the game in Great Britain, and I'm delighted that I'm going to get the chance to talk to a man who's written all about Sir Matt. It's a new book out, and my old journalistic friend Patrick Barclay has brought out this book, Sir Matt Busby, The Definitive Biography. And if you are a fan of Manchester United and the history, then this man is inextricably linked to it. Patrick, the first thing I've got to ask you is what prompted you to write the definitive biography when so many others have gone before?
Well, the point is that I wrote a few years ago, I wrote a book about Sir Alex Ferguson, and it always occurred to me that that at least 2 generations of people need to be reminded that one of Sir Alex Ferguson's greatest achievements was to replicate what Sir Matt Busby had done. And I don't think Alex Ferguson would consider that demeaning or in any way diminishing his achievement. I mean, how could you chip away at that block of his achievements? But I think he would probably concede that he continued the traditions of Matt Busby, he continued the methods of Matt Busby, and he continued the philosophy of Matt Busby in Manchester United. And I think that's one of I mean, people talk about the trophies won under Ferguson. I think maintaining the philosophy that Busby built was, to me, one of his most important achievements. Yeah,
and reading the book early on, he had a good career as a footballer. Yeah. Was his upbringing in Bells Hill and his development down south at the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool, was that what created almost this, ethos in his mind about the way football should be played?
Well, right from, if we go right back to, but you mentioned Bells Hill, it was part of Bells Hill was, there were many mining villages. His was Orbiston, unfortunately no longer there. The people of Bells Hill are still undecided about where the village was, but that's another story. But that was fundamental. I mean, it's first chronologically, but it's also first, I think, in the making of the man, because if you look at great football managers, you look at, and plenty of them are Scots, particularly Shankly, Bob Paisley, Herbert Chapman, the first great manager down at Arsenal. They all come from mining communities. And mining communities taught interdependence, because interdependence could be quite literally a matter of death, a life and death. And so I think that was the beginning. I know it's been said before, but mining and old industrial communities forged that sense of having to look out for one another. That is, I think, still the basis of a healthy football club. So that was the first thing. But then when he went down to Manchester City at the age of, well, he was under 19, and for a boy that never been out of Scotland before, in fact, as far as I know, he'd never been out of that Bells Hill belt, Lanarkshire, to go, all the way to Manchester for a trial and then sign for City, and then to find that the senior players turning their backs on him, because it wasn't. And he resolved then that if he ever got charge of a football club, it would be a family, and the young players would be looked after. So in a sense, both his career as a player, which eventually became successful. But he went through terrible times when he was a young player, being shunned by many of the older players who were jealous probably of their own positions. It was so bad that he went through a spell of what I think would now be diagnosed as depression.
Yeah, and the one thing that's, you know, it runs right through the book is you paint a lovely picture of the person at that time, his history, the social circumstances, and of course religion, which wasn't as, shall I say, it didn't have as big an edge in England as it does in Scotland.
No, not at all. In Scotland, I mean, when he was a little boy, I mean, there were riots in Motherwell. I mean, serious riots, the kind of thing, you know, that later, you know, became associated with some cities in Northern Ireland. But there were big sectarian riots in Motherwell, and of course Roman Catholics at that time were disadvantaged. The government was the Westminster government was only in the process of giving everybody, you know, rights to free education, and so on. So yeah, it was difficult. And in fact, Matt had a friend. Matt was brought up in a devout Catholic family, unfortunately without a father from the age of 5 because of the First World War. But his mother very much believed in integration, and she gave him he had a great education. His mother's a huge figure in the book. But he did have a friend who was called Frank Rogers, and Frank was a bit of a hard man, you know, around Orbiston and Bells Hill. And he was once said to have found a horse outside his house, and he decked it with one punch. So he was Matt would have got into a few fights with Frank Rogers, and Frank's family were maybe a little bit more hardline, but it was all part of growing up.
Yeah, I could dissect every part of the book chronologically. I mean, some of it is well documented. One of the things that I think was a joy is here is a man who didn't believe he could buy success. So he started to build United, even with a dilapidated stadium. He wanted to build it with youth in mind.
Yeah, he took over at United immediately after the war. The stadium had been bombed. It wasn't the only stadium in Britain that had taken a bit of damage, but it was the only one that was totally unusable and would remain unusable for the foreseeable future. So they had no home, they had no money. They did have an idea of a youth policy, and they'd already recruited some players who, it turned out, were very successful for Matt in the first instance. But yeah, he had demanded, even though it was his first managerial job at Manchester United, not as big a club as he made it, but it was still a big club, big-ish club. He demanded a 5-year contract and got it. So, and that was on the basis that he was going to build. He wasn't going to buy. There wasn't any money anyway, frankly. So he was going to build and improve young players. And he gradually, the idea of the club at that time was that they wanted Manchester boys in the Manchester team, you know. Sort of, I suppose, Athletic Bilbao would be the only place where you could the Basques, only place you could really compare it with now. But that was the aspiration. But Matt saw that he was going to have to cast his net a little further afield and set up a scouting system that would reach to, well, for example, the northeast the northeast of England for Bobby Charlton in the mining country of Ashington, up there, and the Midlands of England, where he picked up the great Duncan Edwards.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned his name, because when I look at the teams that he built, when I started reading your section on Munich, it's one of the most emotional, because you feel yourself welling up at, you know, the pain of how his whole life and everything shatters, and of course the likes of Duncan Edwards, a special player
who died, and when he died after 14 days of fighting for his life, even the nurses, the German nurses, it was a hospital in Munich, and where the crash took place, they cried, and of course Matt was still completely unaware, almost completely unaware. He knew something bad had happened, but everybody was including his wife Jean, was under instructions not to talk about it. But yes, the Munich section was the one in writing the book, the one I was most frightened of, the one I knew I had to do something with. And the way I did it was to introduce people. Everybody knows that players died, and not only players, journalists and others, and Matt could have died, was to introduce you to those people while they were still alive. And so, yeah, it's very kind of you to say that you were moved by it, and I certainly was, still when I think about it now. I mean, I was 11 when that happened, but in 1958, but writing it, especially with the help of Harry Gregg, the goalkeeper who was the hero of Munich, that really made it feel raw and real. But Harry's still with us in his mid-80s and still as strident and impossible to shut up as ever, I'm glad to say.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad he's still here. The one thing I would say to you, and again, you know, we could easily dedicate, you know, over an hour on this book. I don't want to preempt it for anyone who's going to get the joy of reading it. You know, 10 years on, United win the cup, and then from there, I think the legacy that he leaves United with. How do you think? Where does he stand in the pantheon of great managers for you?
Well, pretty close to number one. You know, a lot of people, and you're probably thinking it, Busby or Ferguson. I don't know. Busby's son said, my dad was the foundation, Sir Alex was the resurrection, which is a good way of putting it. And I'm going to use that evasion. But no, I would say that the founder is the greater of the two, always. I would put Shankly above Paisley, for example, in Liverpool terms, because without Shankly there wouldn't have been Paisley, and I can promise you that without Busby, Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't have left Aberdeen for Manchester United.
Yeah, well, listen, if you get a chance, the definitive biography, Patrick Bartley. It's been an absolute joy talking to him.